On this episode of the Bronze Metalist podcast, we talk about Bonded by Blood by Exodus. My favorite chapter in the Bible.
Really? That's your favorite chapter?
Sure.
You like it above Deuteronomy?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to this episode of the Bronze Metalist podcast. I'm Cale.
I'm OJ.
And we're two professional broadcasters who really like metal, and we like to talk about it. And that's what this show is.
Yeah, today we're going back to 1984.
All the way back to 1984 when hair was big and fashion was big and everything was big. Everything was bigger in the 80s.
And louder.
And louder.
Yeah.
And just more colorful and because everything's so drab and dreary these days. It has been drab and dreary today.
It is
the
outside.
last couple of days. We've officially reached late May in North Dakota, where it's like, okay, we had a week where it was really nice, 70s, upper 60s, 70s,
right,
cracked 80 once, and now it's time to get back down into the 50s and 60s and get a lot of rain.
It's like nature has a popsicle and keeps going, want a lick? Psych. Want a lick? Psych.
Too bad. We do need rain. It's been rather dry.
It has been dry.
We're going to get into the territory where everything's going to be horrifically humid for a couple of months until we hit mid-July.
Indeed.
When it will never rain again.
Maybe. Who knows? It could be a wet summer. Could be a hot, wet American summer.
It could be a hot, wet American summer. We really don't know.
Yeah.
Paul Rudd might show up. Amy Schumer might show up.
Potentially.
The other 8 million people that were in that movie
cast,
might show up. That's a very stocked cast.
Indeed.
Although it was before any of them were really famous. It was mostly Second City people, wasn't it?
I think so. Yeah, a lot of it was.
So yeah, we might have a wet summer. We'll find out.
We'll find out.
Personally, I hope so because more rain possibly means more thunderstorms, and
I love thunderstorms. We haven't had a lot of tornadoes in the recent years.
Not that I can recall. No, we don't get a ton up here, but they do happen.
Yeah. There's been days where there's been like 5 or 6.
Yeah.
All at once.
We'll have outbreaks occasionally, but. Yeah, that was always like a really big fear of mine as a child.
Really?
Was tornadoes, because I recall at some point there was one that came fairly close to where my parents' house is located when I think I was very young, or possibly before I was born. But it was a story I heard many a time and frightened me into thinking every time there was a thunderstorm and there was a tornado watch somewhere that we were all going to die. And so, severe weather was very, very stressful for me as a kid. And then now, since I've grown up and no longer pay attention to severe weather broadcasts, it's like, ooh, exciting.
Yay!
But I also live, in a city where there'd be hopefully some notice.
And not in a trailer park.
Yeah, I don't live in a trailer park. I do live on the third floor of a fairly, what I imagine to be rather flimsy apartment building.
Yeah,
So
flimsy, good word.
I don't know exactly... I don't know where I would go in the case of honest to God tornado outbreak.
You stand in the window.
Stand in the window, yeah.
Do shots.
If I've got time to run up to work, I can hide somewhere in the basement there.
True that.
But that I would have to run across the street while there's a tornado somewhere.
You'd have to outrun a tornado.
Yeah, as long as I knew it was coming.
Yeah.
But yes, it was a busy day for me today.
It was.
I'm kind of in comfort-seeking mode right now, just because it was stressful for me for a little while. I had a remote to do in the middle of the day, which sort of throws my whole day off, and it's a remote, but it was easy mode as far as remotes go.
Oh yeah, you had Teresa Johnson there to help you out. Yeah. She's great.
Fellow broadcaster or former broadcaster, really. She still broadcasts.
She does.
Though. But it was a blood drive that we were broadcasting from, and so she, is great at talking. I don't need to pressure her or anything to be like, can you talk a little bit more so I don't have to talk. She's fine. Right. We did one break that was 4 minutes long.
But
Yeah, so that was easier, and especially by the second hour of it, I was like, it's fine, I got this.
Right.
That was okay. But
Yeah, I'll be doing the same remote tomorrow.
yeah, from the same event, so it was nice because it's a one station remote. Normally when we do remotes, we have to switch between the stations.
Yeah, you have to remember what station you're on.
Yeah,
and you have to time it out so that you're not on at the same time.
Yeah, which is a pain. Not only it's actually like the timing is not so bad, I find, for the person in the field doing the remote. It's the people back at the studio that have to figure that out. Like when I did my first remote on that Saturday that you were on the board, I wasn't worried about timing at all. I was like, he'll figure it out.
Yeah, which I did.
He's got it. He'll figure it out. So that's not so bad. But yeah, it's.
I still laugh occasionally at big package.
That's gonna follow me for a while.
It will.
Perhaps forever.
Hey, worse things could follow you.
I suppose. than saying big package. I could be like that guy that went viral, some number of years ago when it was his first night at the NBC station in Bismarck.
Oh yeah,
and his
guy.
iPad wasn't working, and he was like, "Fucking goddamn thing!
What the shit? Fucking shit!"
Yeah, it was like, "What the fucking shit?" I think as he said, right as the camera came up on him, his first night.
First thing he ever said on television.
It's like, oh boy.
I'm really good at being from South Carolina. That's what he said that next.
That poor guy.
Yeah.
I think he was bartending later.
Yeah. That was his next very soon career.
Yeah, pretty hard to get back into broadcasting after you being that guy. Although he could probably try again now.
It was gay fucking shit. That's what he said.
Really?
That's what he said.
I don't know if I ever heard that part.
Gay fucking shit.
Oh,
hi, I'm.
And see, the thing is, that is the sort of stuff that gets said when cameras aren't rolling and mics aren't hot. Yeah. Like that like I guess I don't know about a professional TV station. You've worked in TV.
I have.
So are TV broadcasters as vulgar off the air as radio presenters are?
Yep.
Because we're pretty bad.
We are very bad.
Okay.
I remember one night it was me and Michelle was anchoring. It was a Sunday night, so there was only one anchor and there was one weather guy, and it was Big Mike, and I was running all the cameras in the studio. And she did a story about a possible cancer cure that comes from the shell of the crab. And instantly, at the same time, Mike and I just started scratching our crotches. We both had the same exact idea at the same time.
Oh, my God.
And you could just see her eyebrows go up like, don't laugh. Don't laugh. Don't laugh.
You sons of bitches.
I'm going to kill you later.
That's great. It's nice to know that... the same level of professionalism can be found in both broadcast fields. Yeah. That is pretty great. You been doing anything interesting over the last week?
Yeah, anything interesting? I'm trying to think. No, just it was my weather weekend last weekend. I've been taking care of a coworker's epileptic cat.
Oh yeah,
I've been doing that. That's been interesting. Squeaker, yeah. Been going over there. I lost his medicine.
Did you find it?
Well, no. Yeah, I searched the whole house, and searching the whole house of a guy who lives alone is trepidatious at best. I mean, you're now looking in places. Oh, what's this under the? You know what? I don't want to know why there's wadded up. You know what? Never mind.
Yeah.
Never mind. Yeah. So yeah, we had to refill the medication. I had to just go pick it up and take it over there.
Interesting.
What about you? Anything interesting happen to you?
I don't know about anything interesting, but I started watching Critical Role, which is an actual play D&D podcast. It's a bunch of voice actors, professional voice actors who do video games and anime and whatnot, and started watching that because it's been by the same coworker whose cat you're taking care of. It's been recommended to me many times vigorously, and I've always been like, well, they're so long and there's so many of them, and
hours.
I was bored, and I was like, I'll just decide. I'll just start watching season 2, and I was like, okay, well now I'm hooked. So it's really good. It's really good. They're voice actors, so they're when they get into character, they really get into it, and like that is the sort of thing I miss a little bit, is having full conversations in character because you're across from that same person
Right.
in the same physical space, it makes that easier.
You're reading body language, you're
Yeah.
making eye contact, you're doing all that stuff, rather
And
than doing it long distance.
Yeah, and even when you've got video, it's still tough, and you've got delays in communication, which
Right.
can make it difficult. And I miss that. It's made me really, really want to play D&D in person again.
I'm going to be going down to an event in Bismarck on June 30th. My wife and I are doing a thing called Drunkens and Dragons.
Nice.
Yeah, it's gonna be
Very
fun.
nice.
It's a Sunday afternoon in a bar, and it's like 28 people.
Oh my God.
Playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Is it like, I imagine
All day.
it's different games, right?
Yeah, I think it's different.
Okay. I was going to say, one game of 28 people playing Dungeons and Dragons. One round of combat takes 3 hours.
All right, everybody roll initiative.
Fuck.
Who's going 12th?
See, one RPG that you probably could do
Yeah.
with 28 people in person would be, what is it? Only War from Fantasy Flight Games, which is a tabletop RPG where you play as members of the Imperial Guard from Warhammer 40K,
Yeah.
which means you will die many, many, many times because they are disposable.
Oh, sure.
So it's meant to be just kind of dead, like they have quick roll tables for new characters. Basically, that's how much you're expected to die.
Wow.
It's considered a fluke if you manage to survive. Yeah.
Only War.
Do we want to talk about Foot Guy?
Yeah, maybe we should talk about Foot Guy. Okay, so this guy calls.
We don't know his name. It's
No.
not like we're exposing him or anything. It's just a weird person.
Mm-hmm.
We work in radio, so we occasionally, I feel like we're fairly lucky. Like we don't
Yeah.
have weird people calling
It
constantly.
used to be way worse. In days before the internet, in days when people still listened to radio,
Yeah.
it was a lot worse.
Yeah, I've had it kind of easy as far as weirdos go, but this is
Yeah.
seeming new to me.
Uh-huh.
This is a new guy to me that showed up over like the last month.
Right.
And we call him Foot Guy. So he called the office line the other day, and OJ, you answered. Do you want to tell the story?
Well, I picked up the phone and he said, "Hi, can I want to request a song?" I said,
SpongeBob?
Yeah. Hi, I want to request a song.
God.
I can't really do his voice. I wasn't.
Yeah.
But it's weird. It's kind of a weird voice.
Yeah, strange voice.
And I said, "What station are you looking for?" Because they called the office line, and he said, and he was describing something in California. We determined it was a Big and Rich song. He wanted to hear. And said, "Fine." And he said, "Do you have a Bigfoot?" And I said, "Well, I'm not a Sasquatch. But it's a nice day. Maybe you want to wear some flip flops out there? Do you wear stinky socks with your flip flops? Please don't wear stinky socks with your flip flops." And I just kept him on the line.
You
for
kept
like 30
fucking
minutes.
with him.
I did. I kept fucking with him. Like, well, occasionally I like to wear swim fins. I don't know about flip flops. And he was asking about stinky socks. And he doesn't like stinky
By
socks.
the way, I'm sitting next to OJ
Yeah,
the
he's
whole
sitting
time.
next to me.
Our desks are right next to each other.
Yeah, and so well, sometimes I eat my socks. I like to eat my stinky socks. They're pretty tasty. And then I finally came clean and said that I don't have feet.
Yeah.
That's when he lost
shit.
he lost it behind me. I was going to mention how I lost him in Nam, and then he didn't believe me, and he was kind of trying to get off the phone at that point. But
And then he called the station line for the country station
Yeah.
and talked to the DJ that was on there. And this was after we had a conversation with our boss. We're like, try and get this guy's name. Yeah. And she tried asking his name.
Yeah.
And I feel like he's on to us now.
Yeah.
But did he call? He called today, didn't he? Or
I don't
no?
think
That
he-
was
no, he
just
didn't call today,
we were
no.
just talking, and I'm wondering if he's gonna call again
know.
after we tried to get his name. He's like he's on to us because if we know his name, we can make some sort of actionable thing if he keeps on calling and being really weird and harassing us.
do you have a big foot?
He'd be very disappointed in me. I have very small feet.
Do you have small feet? Really?
I do.
You're a tall fella. How do you?
I am.
How do you not fall down with small feet?
You've seen me stand.
That's true. You do fall down.
I
Easily.
do. I almost fall down. I usually catch myself, but yeah, I do have a bit of trouble balancing. I'm not short, but I have like size 8.5 feet. They're quite small.
Really? Wow.
It to the point where, and because my feet are so broad too, it's difficult finding shoes that fit comfortably.
Really?
It's very difficult.
So 8.5 wides.
Yeah, 8.5 wide is kind of what I have to look for and,
Wow.
and try and find shoes that fit appropriately because it's tough. One more thing before we get to the before we get to the beer.
Right.
Game of Thrones ended.
Uh-huh.
You had to know this conversation was coming, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's the conversation we've been having all week.
It is.
It's I don't know if I care about spoilers anymore. It's disappointed me that hard.
Yeah.
I really didn't care for the way it ended. I didn't care for a lot of the stuff that led up to it.
Yeah.
I think there was still some good moments. A lot of great acting. Mm-hmm. A lot of great acting. I don't think any of the bad parts of season 8, which is to me a lot of it. I don't think any of the bad parts of season 8 are the fault of the actors.
No, they're not the fault of the actors.
They performed admirably.
The editing, the special effects,
yes.
the lighting,
everything except the
set
writing.
design.
Everything except the writing was amazing and to me really up to Game of Thrones snuff. I guess the only thing to me is the fight choreography wasn't great. That kind of got pointed out to me, and I was thinking about the much prophesized Clegane Bowl and how there wasn't even really a duel with the Night King and none of that really happened, and that was disappointing to me.
Mm-hmm.
You have all these amazing swordsmen that just spend the biggest episode of the season just mindlessly hacking away at zombies. Like there's not anything visually interesting to the way they were fighting. When you compare that to like the Mountain versus the Viper, which is an amazing fight scene.
That was a great fight scene.
Or the Hound versus Brienne.
Yeah.
Another fantastic fight scene.
Yes.
We don't see scenes like that in season 8. Mm-hmm. There's not a lot of that. Maybe because their primary fight choreographer and trainer was playing the Night King. Maybe that was a possibility. He couldn't train people to fight because he was spending 8 hours in the makeup chair.
For nothing.
Yeah, for nothing. I'm gonna step off my my melted iron throne.
All right.
And stop talking about Game of Thrones.
Okay.
So beer time. I brought Guinness Blonde.
You did! A crisp golden beer.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Crisp Golden Beer.
It is I, Crisp Golden Beer, Knight of the Seven Kingdoms.
Yeah. It's good. I'm enjoying it.
Yes, I hadn't had Guinness Blonde in quite some time, and I forgot how good it actually is. Because when you think Guinness, you think very dark, classic dark Irish beer. Mm-hmm. But this is, Guinness Blonde is
a bit citrusy.
Yeah, it's it's good stuff.
It's refreshing.
It's good. It's good beer, Bront. It's good beer, Bront.
Good beer, Bront.
Yeah. You described the noise. The noise. Yeah, the noise.
Mm-hmm.
You described the noise well.
The noise.
Okay, time for album.
Mm-hmm.
So the album that we're bringing this week is "Bonded by Blood" by Exodus, which is one of the most famous Bay Area thrash metal bands.
Indeed, founded in part by Kirk Hammett.
Yes, like oddly, I mean it's Bay Area thrash, so they all kind of came up together, and widely considered to be the addition to make what should be the Big Five.
Yeah,
that was a lot of when I was reading about the album. There's a lot of people talking about how Exodus should really be. It shouldn't be a Big Four. It should be a Big Five.
Right,
and number 5 is Exodus.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there was also some mention from Dave Mustaine, who was like if it was going to have to be a Big Four, he would swap Anthrax for Exodus.
Really?
He was like kind of throwing some shade at Anthrax. Actually, he's like, I like Scott Ian, but I don't. Some of their other stuff is like they're not metal enough. It's like, shut up, Dave. Shut up, Dave. But no. Yeah, like if there was going to be a Big Five, Exodus would be in there.
Definitely.
Because they're one of the big founding members of thrash metal as a genre.
Indeed.
And they so often seem to get forgotten about for some reason.
I don't forget about them.
Well, of course you don't forget about them, but you're you. You were around when this was all happening.
I was. Well, it's funny. During the early to mid 1980s, I was still a bit young.
Well, yeah, you were still a bit young. You weren't like personally around, but
no,
I mean, like
I was alive.
You were there when things really took off. You were of age, I would say.
Sure. Like in 1986, I was 12.
Yeah, like mid to late 80s. Of course, you
Yeah.
were younger, but like 90 rolls around, and
Yeah.
there's kind of the metal explosion of the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, where
Right.
you've had thrash, which had been coming up and getting more and more popular, and then suddenly death metal explodes onto the scene, and there's new harder, more evil sounding black metal, and alternative metal is starting to get the gears going, and grindcore is still doing its weird thing off in the corner, shitting itself.
Nobody notices yet.
Nobody quite. I mean, people notice it. They don't like it though, because you're not supposed to like it.
Right.
It's not the point.
Yeah.
Even though I do.
Oh, of course.
But
Love grindcore.
yeah, grindcore's off doing its own thing, having a bad fucking heroin trip. Like you've got Converge is founded in 1990. The foundations of like metallic hardcore starting to become a thing, and later be called metalcore, and
Right.
a bunch of emo kids would start playing it. But yeah, I mean, like this was your childhood.
This was my childhood right here.
And speaking of like your childhood and Exodus, where did Exodus come into your life?
Like a lot of things. Well, this one I believe came from my friend Jason Tarver. Gave me in the early days. Like I said, I lived in the Philippines. I lived overseas, and a lot of this was inaccessible. You couldn't just go to a record store and buy this. It wasn't available. So what would happen?
Were there record stores though?
There were record stores. There was the record store at the BX on the base.
Yeah.
But that was not.
Did
a
you
lot of
ever go to?
selection there.
Were there Filipino record
There
stores?
were Filipino record stores, and I would go there, and there would be Filipino-made copies of things, and they were like sort of. I mean, they were $5 a piece.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it was $5.
Back when like vinyl and tapes and shit were like 80 cents.
Yeah, way back in the day, and you could buy them, but you couldn't find a whole lot of like quality metal. There wasn't a whole lot of metal in it.
I suppose it was mostly American pop and stuff like that.
Right, American pop. I mean, like I said, when I got my first Iron Maiden albums, I bought them at a Filipino music store, Filipino tapes. It was amazing.
Yeah.
But this one came as a copy of a copy.
Oh wow!
On a
cassette. A couple stages down.
Yeah, a couple of generations.
Got
in.
the JPEG artifacting on there.
Yeah.
It's an old meme, sir.
Indeed.
But it checks out.
There was a little bit of tape hiss in listening to this one. I got it, and it was back in probably 1987. I might have got it.
A couple years down the line from the release, official release in 85. It was finished recording in 84, I think, but they had some label issues and couldn't get it out till 85.
They did.
And then immediately after the tour was done, they fired their vocalist, which I found interesting.
Yeah, immediately.
So what was your thought back then? Because this was you've described to me. I mean, it was like Iron Maiden, and then Slayer was one of your first. Was this after Slayer?
Yes, I heard this after that. I mean, I was already that was those were the things I got hooked on, like Metallica, your standard stuff, Megadeth and Anthrax.
Now you were into thrash,
and now I'm into thrash. I know. Give me more, and this is one of the original "Give Me More" items that I got from my friends.
Excuse me.
Gesundheit.
I should have just gotten it into the mic.
You might as well have.
Might as well. We don't have a fart mic.
No, we don't.
Like your mom's house.
No. You mean the podcast?
The podcast
okay,
in Mom's house. Not your mother's house, where there is actually, incidentally, a fart mic.
Yeah, there is. Actually, she does. But yeah, it was this, and it was Exodus, and I believe Testament at the same time. That, and there was a band called Heathen that came out. They put out like 2 albums, and then their guitarist, who was originally from Russia, quit Heathen after they broke up and went to play for Exodus.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
interesting. That's also an interesting story, being originally from Russia and then did he move when he was a child or?
Yeah.
Okay, that's how it worked back then. Is like parents came over when they were very young, somehow got out of the Soviet Union to move to America,
right?
And then became guitarists and thrash metal
bands. Exactly.
That's pretty cool. I had something else lined up, and it slipped away from me.
Yeah, that happens.
It does happen. One thing I thought was interesting about this album was this is like one of the earliest albums that I've listened to where I can really pinpoint what I would call screamed vocals.
Mm-hmm.
This is I mean, it's still sort of a prototypical screamed vocals. There's a couple growls, actually.
There's some growls in there.
There's a couple growls in there, and very, very guttural ones at that. I mean, they're very short, but they do happen, and there's screamed vocals and stuff. And this was, 85 before, before that had really become kind of the popular thing. I mean, when I think of thrash metal, I don't think of screamed vocals. I do think of, very gruff, sort of
sure.
James Hetfield type vocals,
Yeah, vocals that kind of sound like this.
Yeah, a little, gruff. It sounds like a grizzled old biker who's singing it.
That's sort of what I picture when I think of thrash metal vocals. But it had to develop into death metal, or else there wouldn't be death metal vocals wouldn't be what they are if someone hadn't done it in thrash metal first.
Right. Yeah, this was groundbreaking.
Yeah, this was kind of groundbreaking, and I can hear so much of sort of a really prototypical death metal type sound where I can listen to this and go, I understand how bands after this came up with death metal. Like, I understand how Possessed and how Death, figured it out and was like, let's just make this a bit more.
Yes. Let's just turn it up.
Let's turn this up a bit more and turn up the darkness. Speaking of like the tone on this, a lot more satanic than I had expected. There's a lot more satanic themes to this than one typically expects from thrash metal. Like, I mean, Slayer's famous for it, but generally speaking, on a lot of Slayer stuff, it's not actually that satanic.
Right.
Like they'll give him a mention every now and then, and they like the they like the pentagrams and stuff, but this one actually really seemed to go at it as far as like the satanic themes.
Lead us to evil.
Yeah. And from that era, mostly what you're thinking of is like, I guess, stuff like Dio and Venom and whatnot that are much more theatrical, much more bombastic in a lot of ways. And you listen to this, and you can also kind of understand how someone could, okay, I want to take the intensity of this and combine it with the occultism of that, and then you get Norwegian black metal.
Right.
like this is a very this is the earliest common ancestor of like metal to me. Like when you look back and you think of like the late 80s metal explosion of all these different genres, it's albums like this that I think of now that I've listened to this, where I'm like, yeah, I can see how people get all these other genres that to me sound totally different from the one thing.
It's evolution.
That's how evolution works, man.
Yeah.
And sort of like in a lot of evolution, this isn't around anymore for the most part.
Right, yeah, you don't find a lot of thrash anymore.
Yeah, I mean, you find like thrash revival bands, but you don't see a lot of brand new bands that you can really call thrash metal.
Right.
There are bands that you can say, oh, that's thrash metal, but it's usually got a lot more going on. Speaking of more going on, there's like little bits of like unconventional time signatures that I noticed, which is not something I was expecting from a mid-'80s thrash metal band. It's not something I was really expecting, and it was a treat to hear. I was like, oh, that's different. I was excited by that. Speaking of excited, we gotta ask.
Yeah.
Does it slap? I'm gonna let you lead on this.
You gonna let me lead on that? Okay, for me, this does slap. This makes me bang my head while I'm doing the dishes. Makes me bang my head while I'm doing anything while I'm listening to this.
All right.
So that
they're
qualifies as slapping.
Several times they tell you to bang your head.
They do. If you were wondering what should I be doing right now, they're telling you.
They're gonna let you know. For me, maybe it was the day I was having, or it's just been kind of stressful, and I got home and listened to it again because I thought I had only listened to half of it while I was doing my logs for the day. I actually listened to the whole thing and paused like halfway through the last song.
Yeah.
And I listened back through it when I got home, and maybe I'm just not in the right mood. But I I don't know if I can really say it slapped. It didn't move me.
It didn't move you.
It didn't move me. It didn't.
Right.
You know, the slap is a very subjective thing.
Sure, of course
I
it
think,
is.
and it could definitely change on a different day. For me today, didn't really slap.
Didn't really slap.
That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. Not everything has to slap. So yeah, didn't quite slap. So what do you think the score was?
What do I think the score was?
How do you think it rated?
We're going out of 5 or 10?
Out of 100.
Out of 100. Okay, good.
Percentile. Let's get precise.
Let's roll 2 10s.
Yes, D100, please.
D100. I'd say this probably gets a 90.
A 90? You're pretty close. 87 is what I found out of 5 reviews. 87 points. One of them was a 100.
Really?
And there was a couple there was a 95 in there, and there was a couple of 80s as well.
Really?
Because they were 4 out of 5 ones, but I turned them into percentiles.
You did the math.
I did the math.
Yeah.
This is the only math I've done this week. 87 out of 100 is the sort of the score I managed to find, and I think that fits.
Yeah.
It works. Scored 87. You first listened to it, 1987.
Yes.
Coincidence, man.
Yes.
Whoa.
I think it is.
You're not. Play with me.
Play with me.
Play with me in this space. I'm making a comedy.
Whoa.
There you go. Whoa.
Mind
crazy.
blown.
Thank you. I threw that that out there to have a little moment, and you just fucking slapped it
right out of the air.
Interception, just boom. Fuck your bit. All right, it's time to play favorites. What is your favorite song on the album? It's your week, so what's your favorite song?
My favorite song on the album, I think, is the second track, Exodus. Is
the title track of the band?
Yeah, the band title track. Yeah,
basically, yeah. Maybe because I hadn't listened to it enough. I let it get late in the week before I started listening to it. Usually, I try to listen to albums like 3-4 times.
Yeah.
And I only listened to it twice. But so a lot of the songs don't stick out to me a lot. But one that does stick out to me because of a very specific line is the final track.
Yeah.
Strike of the Beast. That's someone has to die, and that someone is you.
Yeah.
Or however that line goes.
Yep.
That one sticks out to me, and I love that. It's so corny, but it's great. It's like there's an After the Burial song where right before the breakdown, they play an air horn, and that it's corny, but it makes me lose my goddamn mind every time.
Time for the breakdown.
And it's also a magnificent fucking breakdown. So a line like that really gets me pumped for the rest of the song, which I also found to be, it's one of the longer ones on the album, but the longest one is 7 minutes, and this one is 5 minutes. So sort of the middle of the pack if you were to average them all,
right?
At 5 minutes, and it's I don't know. I generally enjoyed the album quite a bit. Like I said, I was not in a fantastic mood today.
Sure.
For music listening. When I got home, I was just like, I just want to put on my favorite sweatshirt. Set short? Yeah, set short. I don't know what those are, but it's like I want to put on my favorite sweatshirt.
Spicy Chinese food.
Yeah, sure.
Sichuan cooking.
Yes, sure. And put on some explosions in the sky and just listen to some warm, pretty music. And,
sure, you weren't in the mood. You weren't set up for thrash metal.
I was not set up for thrash metal. I was not quite in that mood this afternoon. So I think I would definitely rate it better if I were a bit more hype. If I had a better Wednesday,
sure.
I think I'd think of it a little bit better. Speaking of ratings, I guess we want to talk about your final thoughts and placing. Anything else to say about the album that you enjoy that you want to mention?
There are no ballads on this album.
Certainly not.
No, they decided, we're going to do it, and we're going to do it all the way with every song.
Yes,
and I appreciated that.
Go full tilt with everything. Pull no punches.
And I've liked most of their work since. This is one of those things where it's sort of it breaks my heart a little bit to go, oh, it was your first album, your first outing. It's kind of your best one.
Kind of your best one. That was some of the consensus that I read online is that a lot of people think of this as their best album.
Yeah.
Or at least their first 2 or 3 albums are their best work.
Right.
Which is kind of unfortunate to see a little bit. It's like especially for a thrash metal band that put out an album as recently as 2011.
Yes.
It's kind of sad to see that, although that's happened with a lot of thrash metal bands.
It has.
Is stuff that they've put out post 1990 kind of doesn't resonate with people as it did, like Metallica.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Slayer to a lesser degree. And I guess I don't really know about Anthrax or Megadeth all that much. Whether or not their stuff, their newer stuff holds up. I've got Facebook open.
You got Facebook open over there.
I forgot to close it. I was in the middle of watching a Jamie Lannister tribute.
Yeah, I saw that.
Our sweet boy. They butchered his character arc.
They did.
No, I said I was done talking about Game of Thrones. I swear. I'm done.
Oh, a bunch of shit fell on him. Oh, that's how it goes. Oh.
And he went back to fuck the woman that he had, seemingly should have been done with.
Mm-hmm.
He should have gone back to kill her, but whatever.
But whatever.
And
you'll notice there was an area in the room that didn't have any rubble on it.
Yeah, 5 feet away.
5 feet away. If they had just sidestepped, they could have sidestepped their doom.
Despite the fact that in the scene when they die, you clearly see the entire vault around them.
Yeah.
Collapsing, and heading towards them, like the entire basement was falling in on them.
But whatever. Anyway, gold. I give it a gold.
Yes, you give it a gold medal. There you go.
Medal, yeah.
I'm gonna give it I'm gonna go middle of the pack and call it a silver, simply because I think I'll need to listen to it with a clearer mind in order to really give it an accurate rating. I don't want to give it a bronze because that sort of has a negative. I suppose negative would be did not place. We don't. We're kind of on an IGN scale here, where bronze means bad, where really it should. You got 3rd place in an Olympic competition.
Sure,
you're pretty good.
Exactly.
So yeah, we need to do some reevaluation on how we rate things and. Because did not place is bad.
But you have to realize that usually when we bring albums to the table,
we bring stuff we like. It's tough to you don't want to listen all the way through to something that's bad.
Right.
And a lot of bad metal, you don't hear about it.
No, you don't.
That's the thing. There's a lot of stuff that I can say, yeah, all right, I can dig this on a certain day or something like that.
Yeah,
but
there's merit to everything.
Yeah, there's merit to everything, and that goes for stuff outside of metal. Of course, we had a whole month where we didn't do metal. We didn't do metal albums.
We did a Duran Duran live album.
We did a fucking Duran Duran album, and you know what? It was pretty good. It was a pretty good album. And yeah, so it's weird. Sort of the scaling we set up. It works with the name of the podcast, but it's weird for an evaluation. But and this is also subjective too. Like everything we say here is subjective. We're talking about art,
right?
Talking about art. It's all subjective.
Well, we're talking about art we like.
Yes, that's true.
Now the funny thing is, I know in my day I did receive a number of heavy metal albums that I did not like. I wish I could remember what any of them were.
Yeah.
I can't because I was set up for something called Columbia House. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
Columbia House is this mail order music thing that they would send you a disc once a month and they make you pay for it.
Okay.
And yeah, it was always something. I don't know why. I don't even know why I want this. But you could go in their little paper. It was a 2-page catalog, and you can look up stuff you wanted to order. And since they sort of calculated what I liked, and so they put a whole bunch of weird back alley thrash metal in there.
Yeah.
And so I would say, well, I want this, I want this, I want this. I've never heard of this. I don't know what this is on Roadrunner Records. Yes, I want this.
Sure, yeah.
Of course,
it's on Roadrunner. It's got to be good.
It's got to be good. And then and then all this stack of CDs would come up, and I'd pay $16.
It's not bad.
Yeah, and I'd have all these CDs, and they were flimsy. Clearly, I mean, the jacket was like a photocopy, and
folded over paper, tape on the sides.
And of course, you know, like 3 out of the 4 albums you'd listen to like once, and it'd be like, no.
Yeah, and like now it's so much different because you can pick and choose literally everything.
Right.
Like you by no means have to listen to music you don't like.
Right.
There's, you know, you can very easily cultivate a huge playlist of only things you enjoy. Mm-hmm. Which is what I've been doing since I was 16 with Spotify.
Sure.
I started listening or using Spotify when I was like, 16.
It's like you're in a musical bubble.
Yeah, it kind of is.
Maybe we should make that a mission to go outside the bubble and try to find something we don't like.
It's a possibility. I don't know when we want to start doing that, because next week I do want to bring something that I do like,
okay,
and that I'm pretty sure you like as well.
Okay.
Next week I would like to bring. It's a band I've been listening to a lot recently. It's an album I've been listening to. No, it's not Elephant.
Is it Mammoth?
You're in the right family. You're in the right family.
Pachyderm? Is it?
Okay, you're a little too broad there. Because it's not a rhinoceros.
Okay.
No, it's. I'm going to be bringing Emperor of Sand by Mastodon.
Sweet.
They are a Georgia-based, I guess, just heavy metal.
Just heavy metal.
Just heavy. You could call them progressive. I wouldn't call them progressive metal. I'd call them progressive heavy metal.
Right.
That terminology might not make sense to any of you out there, but it makes sense to me.
I would call them progresso heavy metal.
It would go nice with some
crackers
some pasta,
and maybe some pasta. Yeah.
No. Okay. Yeah, they're a fantastic band. Emperor of Sand won them an Emmy a couple of years ago. So
yes.
Not an Emmy, Grammy.
A Tony. It won them an. They did it on Broadway.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Probably depressing. Because given
potentially
the subject album or the subject matter of the album is kind of depressing.
It is kind of depressing.
It's not a depressing album, but when you know the background of what was going through
pretty
their
dark.
minds and through their lives, it's kind of dark.
Yeah.
Except for Brent, because Brent was. We'll talk about it more next week.
Brent doesn't do darkness necessarily. He's a little too crazy for darkness.
Oh, Brent Hines is an amazing man, and we will talk about him more next week. Okay, so yeah, that is the plan for next week. We're going to be talking about Emperor of Sand by Mastodon. Very excited for that.
Yeah.
If you enjoy listening to us talk about metal and talk about our lives and what's been going on and that sort of thing, please check us out on social media. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We have an Instagram page. I don't know why I keep mentioning it. Usually I don't.
You don't post anything on it.
The last couple of months, I actually haven't really mentioned Instagram very much, but it's there.
Yeah.
And we post every episode on Facebook and on Twitter. So you can use those links not only to get to our podcast, but also to share it with your friends, which is something I highly recommend you do if you like us and think other people should listen to us. So go and do that if you so please. If you don't, that's okay. We still like you. With that being said, I guess it's time for us to get this over with. I'm Kale.
I'm OJ.
I didn't quite do that right.
Try again.
Yeah, I'll tell you. I'll one more game, please. One more game. All right. With all that said and done, God damn it, I'm gonna have to keep all this now. With all that said and done, you've made it to the end. I don't know. Fuck it. Congratulations. Oh, jeez.
Oh, fuck it. Here we go. Blondes have more fun.
It's true.